Right, definitely that. And what was it like for you being the first female editor-in-chief in the history of the stores while being in like a all-boys club industry and in the workplace?
That's a tough thing for a woman coming up in the game because you really, really have to prove yourself. And, it's not exclusive to hip-hop. There are a lot of male-dominated industries out there, but in hip-hop, it's kind of, the culture and the things that are going on in the culture, I think, are really playing into that, so that behind the scenes, that treatment of women starts to get worse just because people use what may be going on in the music or in the mainstream they use that as an excuse. Mm-hmm. To do things behind the scenes in the office. And you got to remember, when you go to work every day, like, it don't matter how many records out there saying negative things about women. You can't go to work and treat women differently, or you can't go to work and you're in an office and you want to say different. It's totally different. You know what I'm saying? You're in a workplace environment, regardless of the industry that you work in.
Definitely that, because, there's probably a lot of boys will be boys moments, like sitting around the water cooler saying inappropriate jokes and referring to females, anatomy, and various other things of that nature. And that should not should not go down in any workplace, period. It should be very neutral, have a level playing field, and that gender should be neutralized, because you're like, hey, you got women over there, they're not going to like that. And then, like, if a workplace was female dominated, and if you make jokes about males, some males may take offense to that. So it got to be like, okay, we got males here, got females here. We can't say what we really, say. We got to pretty much watch our P's and Q's.
Yeah, you make a really important point. I think people get it twisted. This country has laws to protect the people in the work environment. So you can't just act a certain way and use hip-hop or any other industry as an excuse for behavior that is illegal or against the law.
And then what was your take on, like, the whole, video vixen thing? Because I've been seeing on VH1 the special about sexploitation hip-hop on the set, about, the various tales that go on doing these video shoots and girls willing to do any and everything to get to an A-list artist or even the entourage.
You know what? It's a business, and I think that it's not something that just happens in hip-hop, but because the music has reflected so much of this, now the attention is on hip-hop for it. Like, I'm sure that this has happened in rock music. I'm sure it happens in Hollywood. Like, I'm sure it's the same sort of thing. But remember, what we're putting out in the music, hip-hop has always reflected reality. And what we're putting out in the music right now is really making people pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. And with the state of hip-hop, you got a lot of people that kind of grew up during the golden era, the golden age of hip-hop, saying that today's hip-hop is not like it was back then, because back then you had your different lanes. Like, if you didn't like Run DMC, you had your De La Soul. If you didn't like De La Soul, you had your Big Daddy Kane. And now it seems lumped up, and it's not really as much diversity, and it's more about quantity over quality. How would you respond to that?
You know what? You summed it up right there. You said something really important. Like, it's not about, this one type of hip-hop. It's the fact that we aren't diversifying what we're getting. So all you're seeing in the mainstream is this negative portrayal of women, or all you're seeing in the mainstream is this one type of hip-hop that gets reflected in the culture. So I think that you said it right there. I agree 100% with what you just said. Yeah,
I appreciate that. It makes me want to, get like a Nike sweater, like a Gucci, Dapper Dan joint, and go to the spotlight, be like Nino Brown, cutting off Frankie Muniz, not Frankie Muniz, Frankie, whatchamacallit, in New Jack City, cut off his ponytail, rock the bye, baby.
Right.
All that good stuff right there. Now, do you think that hip-hop will return to the golden era, or do you think that the music industry is still bleeding out the wazoo in terms of money, hemorrhaging at the fact that we're like, well, we're going to keep putting out this music because we're marketing to the 18 to 34 demo, and we're not really concerned with quality. We're just going to do what's going to make us money, and we're going to grease palms. And if you don't know what grease palms is, various people at various radio and TV stations get payola. Don't tell nobody I said that.
Don't be the one that puts it out there, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I think that you're right. The industry is in a very bad state right now. But for hip-hop, I feel like it's a new era and it's a new time, and that we're going to overcome that because of the fact that the industry is doing that. So right now, people look at the quality. They're looking for it.
Right. Okay, so how did you end up getting contacted by VH1 to say your piece on New Editions Behind the Music?
That's a weird, funny question, right? I don't know who called me for that. I forgot how they reached out to me. I believe I was at the source, but it's so funny because growing up, that was my favorite. When they called me for that, you knew I had to go. I knew everything about them. Like, I don't know if I can tell you now, but I remember growing up, I had all the posters on my wall. I was like a big fan. I knew everybody's birthday. Like, I knew everything they did. So I thought that was a great opportunity for me because I was able to talk about a group that I definitely grew up on and had a lot of love for. I had all of their albums when I was growing up.
Yeah, you and every other teenage girl in the inner city was swooning over Ralph, over Mike, and Mike was like, yo, Kim, you know I'm from Boston, right? You know, I discovered Boyz II Men, you know, and if you don't like my style, you know, you could get caught. But I'm sure you had your little New Kids posted in the corner, too, probably.
Not as much. Not as much.
So you were like a closet fan? Like, don't tell anybody.
No, it wasn't. It was very obvious. Like, my mother knew she had to get me tickets every time they came into town.
So I'm sure, you know, now that they're back, a lot of the grown women that were their fans back then are starting to act like they're teenagers again.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I'm sure Tammy is liquidating the housing assets and Little Jenny's scholarship fund to go follow Dookies on the Block cross country.
Wow, isn't that crazy how they came back?
Yeah, it's definitely crazy.
They're not called that anymore, aren't they? Like NKOTB?
Well, they still go by New Kids, you know, it's a name. You know, I interviewed Danny Wood, and after interviewing him, I came away with a newfound respect for them because they definitely got a lot of flack because the image preceded the music and whatever went down with Maurice Starr, who I also had a chance to interview, and pretty much, you know, New Kids definitely, they're back doing their thing, and they're definitely gonna bring in money thanks to touring. Yeah, definitely thanks to that. And what is your opinion on the New Jack Swing phenomenon, which combined hip-hop beats and R&B vocals? Because before Teddy Riley and Make It Last Forever, R&B was very Billy D. Williams, very Colt 45, very adult.
Yes, but I will say that hip-hop has had all of these different spin-offs, right? And at that time, that was what we were looking for, you know, as a culture. I think it ushers in a new time for, like, a dance sort of music with this New Jack Swing style. I thought it was great for the culture, but you see that sort of spin-off in hip-hop all of the time. Like, every couple of years, there's a new movement, whether it's crunk, whether it's New Jack Swing, whether it's, you know, R&B type of smoothed out hip hop. There's always that other sort of branch that hip hop has.
So it's always going to come back to the root. Now, how do you feel about the current state of media? Because, you know, newspaper revenues are down, layoffs, cutbacks, and radio is experiencing the same effect. So do you think that by the old school gatekeepers, by them not being embracive of the internet, they're sort of reaping what they sowed and not really taking advantage of this new medium?